An administrative error bound him to an alien wife. She was angry until he made her blush. Jack Murphy stared at the holographic form floating above his desk with growing confusion, and the alien woman standing in his quarters looked equally bewildered, but far more furious. The translation device between them crackled to life as she spoke in rapid clicks and melodic tones that transformed into clipped English words. "You are my assigned mate, according to the Galactic Registry, and I did not consent." To this, Jack ran his fingers through his brown hair and shook his head slowly, while trying to make sense of the document that claimed he was now legally bound to Vera Solna of the Etherian Empire through what appeared to be a colossal bureaucratic mistake. "I didn't sign up for this either, so we are in the same situation." Here Vera was tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered in shades of deep violet and silver patterns that moved across her arms like living tattoos, and her eyes were large and golden with vertical pupils that narrowed when she was angry, which seemed to be her default state around him. Her people valued strength and directness, and she had made it abundantly clear that being assigned a human mate was beneath her station. "Humans are fragile and short-lived, and your species has barely left your own solar system." Jack leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms with a slight smile playing at his lips. Despite the absurdity of the situation, we might be new to the galactic stage, but we are tougher than we look. She scoffed and turned away with her long silver hair swaying behind her, and the traditional robes of her people flowing like liquid mercury. "This arrangement is temporary, and I will have it dissolved by the end of the cycle." The problem was that galactic law was notoriously slow and dissolving. A registered bond could take months or even years of legal procedures, and in the meantime, they were expected to share quarters aboard the diplomatic station, where Jack worked as a human liaison. The first few days were tense, and Vera kept to her side of the living space, while Jack tried to give her as much room as possible in the modest quarters. He worked during the day cycles coordinating trade agreements and cultural exchanges between Earth and the various alien species, while Vera spent her time filing complaint after complaint with the Galactic Registry on. The fourth evening, Jack was preparing a simple meal in the small kitchen area when Vera emerged from her room looking exhausted and defeated. "They rejected my appeal again, and there are complications with my family status if I abandon the bond." Jack turned off the heating unit and looked at her with genuine sympathy. "I am sorry this happened to you, and I know being stuck with a human is not what you wanted." She sat down at the table with her shoulders slumping in a way that made her seem less like the proud warrior woman and more like someone who was simply tired. "It is not personal against you specifically, but my people have expectations, and being bound to an off-worlder will cause problems with my standing." He placed a plate in front of her with some earth food that he had adapted to be compatible with her biology based on the station medical files. "Look, we did not choose this, but maybe we can make it less terrible for both of us." She looked down at the food with suspicion, but after a moment she picked up the utensil and took a small bite, and her eyes widened slightly. In surprise, "This is quite good, actually." Jack grinned and sat down across from her with his own plate. "My grandmother taught me to cook, and she always said that good food can make any situation better." Something shifted between them that evening, and while Vera was still frustrated with the situation, she began to talk to Jack like he was a person, rather than an inconvenience. He learned that she was a decorated pilot in her homeworld fleet, and that she had been on a diplomatic mission when the registration error occurred. She learned that Jack had volunteered for the liaison program because he believed in building bridges between species, even though it meant leaving Earth behind. Over the following weeks, they fell into an unexpected rhythm, and Jack would cook meals that blended Earth cuisine with Etherian preferences, while Vera would share stories about her travels through the galaxy. He made her laugh one evening when he attempted to pronounce a phrase in her language and completely butchered it. "That is not even close, and you just told me that my feet smell like engine lubricant." Jack laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair, and Vera found herself smiling despite her best efforts to maintain her dignity. One night, they were reviewing the latest legal documents together when Jack noticed something in the fine print. "Wait. If we can prove that we are making a genuine effort at the partnership, the appeals process becomes much faster." Vera leaned over to look at the document, and her shoulder brushed against his, and for the first time she did not immediately pull away. "What kind of effort do they require?" "Cultural exchange and mutual understanding and shared living arrangements. and the usual bureaucratic nonsense. She was quiet for a moment before speaking softly. We have been doing most of those things already without trying. Jack looked at her and realized how close they were sitting and how her golden eyes seemed to catch the light in a way that was genuinely beautiful. Yeah, I guess we have. The moment stretched between them, and Vera felt her skin patterns begin to shift into warmer hues, which was something her people could not control when experiencing strong emotions. Jack noticed the change, and his expression became gentle. Is that what happens when you are flustered? She pulled back slightly, and her normal composure cracking as she tried to will her skin back to its neutral tones. I am not flustered. He reached out slowly and brushed his fingers against her arm where the patterns swirled in soft pinks and golds. I think you are, and I think maybe this arrangement is not as terrible as we both thought it would be. Vera met his eyes, and for once she did not have a sharp retort ready, and her patterns continued to shift, betraying every emotion she was trying to hide. You are insufferably observant for a human. Jack smiled and moved a strand of her silver hair away from her face. And you are beautiful when you stop trying to be angry, all the time. Her breath caught, and the colors across her skin bloomed into deeper shades as she felt something she had not expected. Warmth spreading through her chest at his words and touch. This was not supposed to happen. Jack shrugged, with his hand still resting gently on her arm. A lot of things are not supposed to happen, but sometimes the mistakes turn out better than the plans. She looked down at where his hand touched her skin, and then back up at his face with a small smile. Finally, breaking through her usual stern expression. Perhaps this particular administrative error was not entirely unfortunate. He leaned closer and gave her time to pull away if she wanted, but she stayed where she was. So we are doing this, then. Vera closed, the distance between them with her lips meeting his in a kiss that felt like the most natural thing in the universe, despite how impossible it should have been. When they finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his with her skin still, glowing in shades that spoke of joy and affection. We are bound by paperwork, but I think I would choose you anyway. Jack wrapped his arms around her and held her close as the stars visible through the viewport seemed to shine a little brighter. Sometimes, the galaxy has a strange sense of humor, but I am not complaining about this outcome. From that night forward, their quarters felt less like a prison sentence and more like a home they were building together. One meal, and one conversation, and one shared moment at a time. The bureaucratic error that had thrown them together had given them something neither had been looking for, but both desperately needed, and Vera no longer filed complaints to dissolve their bond because she had found something worth keeping in the human who had made her blush.